Okay, now I have finished my modern baby blanket that I'm making for my great niece Parker. And what I've done is I went ahead and darned in all of the ends of the little blocks that were put together because when I finish with my I-cord border, that means I'll be completely finished. And it's just a nice thing to do. I won't have to sit and put the ends in when I'm all excited about getting it finished. Now, the pattern in Mason-Dixon knitting for the edging of the modern baby blanket basically asks for a garter stitch edging that goes about, maybe an inch or so along the edge of the border. The thing is, I didn't really like it when I did it on my first blanket. It was a little floppy and I felt like, I don't know, it just didn't have any substance. So the next blanket I did, I put an I-cord border around the baby blanket and I was much happier with the result, which is why I'm going to talk to you about doing that today. There are two steps to preparing to add an I-cord border to a garment, or in my case, a baby blanket. The first is to get the stitches cast on to your needle that you're going to be using for your I-cord. Now you can do any kind of cast on you want, but I would strongly recommend you use an invisible cast on. The reason is when you get all the way around your garment or your baby blanket, you can use a Kitchener stitch to graft the two ends together, and I don't think anyone other than another knitter would be able to notice that join. So try to use an invisible cast on. And I'd recommend you go to our tutorial on invisible cast-ons because I'm only going to be using 4 stitches and it's not going to really give you time to catch the gist of the technique. So what I'm doing is I'm going to have 4 stitches invisibly cast on, and I have a little extra bit of yarn here that I use to hold those stitches until I get all the way around and I can graft them. So I cast on 4 stitches. You can make a 3-stitch garter, you can make a 3-stitch I-cord border or a 4-stitch. I just want it to be a little thicker for the blanket. So I've done that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my work around, okay, and with my needle I'm going to go ahead and knit these stitches like regular. And I can knit all the way up to the last stitch, but then I have to do step 2 of preparing for my I-cord border. Okay? Alright, before I knit that last stitch, I'm going to stop and go get ready with my second step. The second step to preparing for an I-cord border is to pick stitches up along the edge of your garment or your blanket. Now I'm not going to pick up all of the stitches along my blanket. I'll add more as I go along, but this is how I get started. Now I like to start sort of a little off center of a corner if I'm doing something like a shawl or a blanket, because then when I do my join, even though it's pretty invisible because of my cast on, I know it's kind of off the center of people's view. Okay, now I'm going to be picking up half of a stitch as I go along because that is how I'm going to be joining my I-cord. It's how I'm choosing to join my I-cord. And it doesn't really matter, just pick how you want to. I mean, I could just as easily, if I wanted to, make a really big connection and go down and pick up 2 stitches and make a bigger connection. Doesn't really matter as long as you're consistent. And once you get, maybe 20 or 30 stitches onto, I use a circular needle because it allows me to get a whole lot of stitches, and I can keep adding more at the other end. You get maybe 30 stitches on there, in this case just a few, and then what you do is you run your circular needle all the way down here, and now you're ready to join the stitches that I have on my other needle ready to go. Okay, now remember I have my 4 I-cord stitches and I have my picked up stitches that I'm getting started with. What I did is I slipped those 4 I-cord stitches onto the other end of the same circular needle just because it makes it a lot easier to work back and forth. You can, if you want, quite easily use a double pointed needle or even a regular straight needle here. You'll see why. So I've knit the first 3 of my 4 I-cord stitches, and I told you you needed to wait. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just for now, slip that last stitch over, and I am going to do an SSK, only the way I do an SSK is a little different. I learned this from watching one of Meg Swanson's DVDs. What you do is you slip the first one as if to knit, slip one of the body stitches as if to purl, and then you knit those 2 together. Okay? Now, you've knit 1 body stitch to your 4 I-cord stitches. All you're going to do now is slip the 4 I-cord stitches back on to the left-hand needle, and you're going to knit again. 1, 2, 3, and when I get to the 4th stitch, I'm going to slip as if to knit, slip as if to purl, and then I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together. Then I will slip the 4 I-cord stitches back and repeat one more time. Knit 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then slip as if to knit, slip as if to purl, and then knit 2 together and slip it back. Okay, I'm going to stop for now. I'm going to go for a little ways and then show you that progress, and you'll get the idea of what's going on. And don't worry about this pink, by the way. That's your invisible cast on. Remember, that's going to disappear when you get to the end. Okay, be right back. Now you can see a little bit of how this I-cord is working. See how the I-cord is basically perpendicular to the border? And if you continue on down the border of the blanket, you just keep going down. Now what I want to show you now is 1. See how nice that slip is to knit, slip is to purl, knit 2 together? Makes a nice little lay down. You don't have any blips that you usually get when you do an I-cord border. Now the other thing I want to show you is recognize that this is the same circular needle I was using when I was knitting the body of my baby blanket. All I'm doing is working my way around, picking up stitches as I go. Now if you want to know how to pick up more stitches, here's what I do. See how I'm almost finished with the body stitches I want to do, and I've slipped my I-cord stitches onto here? I would probably should change this out to be a smaller cable, but just for now, see, I just pull this through till I get to the end, and I pick up my stitches like I was doing before. I might pick up just a whole ton of them, and that's just fine. And then once I've picked up, let's say I picked up many more than this, but I picked up a bunch, all I do is pull my cable back around, and I'm ready to go again. Then I can start doing my I-cord for a few more stitches.